What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers, and break down why Tesla's actually dropping right now during the pre-markets. We have some new news that came out. It's a little bit negative for the markets looking at the PCE data reports, not to mention some more news involving a new US probe that's come out involving the Tesla recall of 2 million vehicles. So I want to talk about why this is very important and how this is affecting Tesla moving forward. Before I break the devil's information, before I get into any more details about Tesla and to the markets, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Weeble link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Weeble and deposit $500, you're guaranteed 20 free stocks. If you deposit $25,000 or more, you're guaranteed 75 of them. And the offer ends very soon in just 4 days. Anyways, for Tesla, as you guys can see, Tesla is dipping a little bit more. We did push higher on Tesla, reaching just under 175. But then this morning we got some negative news involving these new probes coming out by the US doing more investigations on Tesla. And then on top of that, the market pushed higher before it's starting to reject a bit because the PCE data report was not the best. So I want to break down more details about this before I break down the charts. So PCE came out. Core PCE was 0.3% aligned with expectations, and that's for month over month. Personal income month over month was 0.5%. This is once again close to expectations. However, personal spending was also a little bit harder than expected. We're still seeing spending being high. And then PCE month over month was 0.3%. This is once again aligned with expectations, but the year over years were not the best. We got a 2.7% PCE. That is above the 2.6% expectations. This was a little bit hot, just by a tiny bit. And then we had core PCE at 2.8%, a little bit above expectations at 2.6 to 2.7%. So core PCE year over year and PCE year over year for all items were both a little bit hot, just a tiny bit hot, showing signs that inflation is still, once again, a big issue for the Fed, and the Fed has work to do. And then at 10 o'clock a.m. today, 30 minutes after the market opens, we have the Michigan Consumer Sentiment Report coming out. So watch for volatility at that time. So with that data coming out, you guys can see SPY has max pain at, I believe it was 504 the last time I checked. So I could just double check for you guys real quick. Currently, SPY is at 507, but the max pain's at 504, at least for right now. And we have a 2.85 put to call ratio, so it's right here. We'll be watching to see what happens with all of this. And then on top of all of that, the majority of positions are in the put side, but the question is, will the market makers try to hurt both sides? Or are they going to try to squeeze one side over the other? We'll have to wait and see. For earnings, we just had ExxonMobil and Chevron. That's concluding earnings for the week. ExxonMobil actually has fallen a bit as its earnings missed on lower gas prices and squeezed refining margins. So their EPS was a miss at $2.06. Revenue was a beat at $83 billion. But with that being said, their overall revenue doing relatively well was still lower than what we saw from a year ago. So even though they did beat expectations, it's still a bit of a dip. And overall, we're waiting to see what else happens with the other pieces of news. So I'll be waiting for that. But overall, they are dropping so far based off what we're seeing. Earnings were not the best. When it comes to the US economy, there's been a lot of talk right now about what's happening so far, with the market kind of dipping a bit after what we saw in, with the GDP numbers. The market started to bounce a bit, started to push in the pre-market, and then as soon as the PCE data report came out, we're kind of dipping a little bit, so we have to be very careful. Uh, Alphabet, aka Google, had its first dividend, and they did relatively well with earnings, seeing lots of growth in revenues. That's why the share price was up yesterday. I did talk about that already. Microsoft is increasing its spending at a rate that hasn't been seen in 2016, but overall, their earnings were not bad, and we're starting to see nice growth despite that. They still managed to exceed estimates, and their guidance was not bad. It was a little bit weaker, but not too bad, and its share price is still up. Paramount Global is once again getting closer to a deal that would merge two companies with Skydance Media. And besides that, we're seeing Southwest once again making some adjustments to their policies when it comes to their seating. But that's pretty much it for the main news involving the markets. Now let's focus on Tesla. So for Tesla, there's US probes that are coming out over the Tesla recall of 2 million vehicles over the autopilot. The US auto safety regulators said on Friday that they opened an investigation into whether Tesla's recall of more than 2 million vehicles announced in December to install new autopilot features is adequate. And the NHTSA is coming out and said that it's opening this investigation after the agency identified concerns due to crash events after the vehicles had the recall software installed, and results from the preliminary NHTSA tests, whether or not they remedied the vehicles. So that's very important. The new probe comes after it closed its nearly 5-year investigation into Autopilot, saying it found evidence that Tesla's weak driver engagement system was not appropriate for the autopilot's permissive operating capabilities. And they're also saying that a portion of the remedy both requires the owner to opt in and allows drivers to readily reverse it. So they're saying that Tesla issued software updates to address the issue that appear related to its concern, but has not made them a part of the recall, otherwise determined to remedy the defects that poses unreasonable safety risk. So once again, guys, Tesla had its largest quote unquote recall. This isn't like an official recall, it's just more like Tesla was trying to, do some over-the-air software updates to remedy them. But this happened in December. They're calling it a recall of 2 million vehicles. And now the SEC is investigating whether or not what Tesla's doing to kind of like address this works or not. And they're trying to say that many things out there are not really adequate when it comes to automation. Tesla hasn't really responded to the HTSA, but this investigation is pretty important. And this is actually causing Tesla to dip a little bit. So I just wanted to call that out. On top of this, there's been a lot of talk about how the first autopilot investigation was closed, but now there's a new one once again, not for just the autopilot, but more about the overall recall or quote unquote recall that they're referring to. Once again, we can't say it's an official recall. It has more to do with your interpretation of it because people have different views and such. But let me just say right now, Tesla's just barely at this 170 area. We'll have to see how it reacts to this. If we manage to break through this, look at 172 as resistance. Then if that breaks, there's a 175 coming. If we end up losing support at 168.4, we're going to be dipping easily all the way down towards 165, then 162. Overall, for Tesla, we are kind of dipping a little bit. There is a risk of this actually dropping a little bit lower, but we'll have to see how well we hold above 165. As long as we're above that, we do have potential to bounce back up. So watch this support right here in this 168 area. Could rebound a bit and then possibly continue lower before we try to bounce off 165. There might be a little bit of a dip coming. I want to give you guys a warning about that because the PCE data report came in a little bit hot and Tesla's kind of dipping a little bit because of this investigation news. But then we'll watch and see if Tesla could rebound. So look and see how it reacts to 20 EMA. Might bounce a little bit, then start dipping. Could be a small dip on Tesla to 165 or so before it tries to rebound. I'll be watching that very, very carefully. As far as SPY goes, I'm seeing the same thing. We have a potential bearish divergence developing, and because of the fact that the inflationary data wasn't that great, we could see a little dip on SPY, in my opinion, all the way back down to either 50, basically 505, if not 504, around that range. Then we could be looking for a bounce after that. So it might actually come down first and then try to bounce after. But I do see a risk of this dipping just a bit because once again, inflation was a little bit hot, and we do have this bearish divergence. So we might see a little dip. Watch 506, the 200 EMA for confirmation. If we lose that, yes, we could dip and then try to bounce, but that's going to be key for today. For Nvda is also in a very, very interesting position. It's testing 845 as resistance, the level we called out. We have support at 834. If we lose this, look for 830. Watch and see how we react to this resistance. We're still testing it. We have a cup and handle like structure. It is possible we dip a little bit first to 830 and then try to bounce back up, or we could try to hold up from here. We're just kind of range bound right now, so watch and see which way we break. Breaking 845 would be bullish, losing 834 would be bearish, and there is still potential for this to bounce, but we'll just have to give this some time. Watch and see which way it breaks. There is still a risk of it dipping and then bouncing. The triple Q is starting to reject a little bit. If we end up losing 428, watch 426 point, excuse me, 426.64, then 425 is support. See if we bounce or not. If it breaks 430, we're back to bullish. This looks to me like it might dip a little bit more towards 426 and 425, and then try to bounce after that. So watch and see just to be safe. Apple is still holding up very nicely. It's still showing lots of relative strength compared to the market. I think that we're going to be watching 171. Could retrace to 170, bounce off to 171. If we break this, we could still keep going to 172.5. This is still bullish overall. I think that there's still potential, but we could dip a bit and try to push higher. So watch for that just to be safe. With that being said, guys, that's what I'm seeing, at least for the markets. Meta is retracing just a bit. We could retest this previous resistance, becoming support at 430 before we try to bounce. Amazon's also starting to dip a little bit. Going to be retesting 176. If we lose this, watch 175 and then a bounce. But I still see a little bit of a dip coming before it tries to rebound. So that being said, guys, the market's in a very interesting position. Yes, we are technically up in the pre-market. We're still technically going to attempt to gap up, but there is a risk of the market tipping a bit because the overall inflationary report was a little bit hotter than expected. All right, so for Tesla, no, there's a chance it's going to dip a little bit. Watch our support at 168. It could dip a bit more from here, guys, because we have a new the NHTSA is doing a big investigation, which is kind of negative news for Tesla, and that's part of why it's a little bit more bearish. Sometimes unexpected pieces of news could come out. Yes, Tesla did push more first. We did get close to my target of 175 before rejecting. So yes, it did push first. We did get a little pump first before this move came, and then we'll see how things go. So I'll be back in a few hours to update you guys. We are kind of dipping a bit, and then we'll just have to be as patient as possible. Thank you all for listening. Please have a great day, and peace out.